Good evening. Welcome to part 14 of our Middle-earth-inspired series. This is the fourth story in the Enchanted Forests, The Hidden Grove. Let's begin. The forest grew quieter as the companions pressed forward, the hum of its ancient magic softening to a distant murmur that seemed to drift through the air like a fading melody. The path ahead was narrow and overgrown, its edges blurred by thick moss and tangled roots that twisted upward like the gnarled hands of an unseen force. Orlin felt the pulse of the seed in his pocket steady and rhythmic, its warmth a constant presence that guided his steps even as the light of the glowing stones grew faint. Cyrana walked ahead, the keeper's staff glowing softly in her hand, its light muted as though subdued by the forest's will. Adric moved close behind, his staff brushing the ground with every step, the faint shimmer of its runes barely visible in the dim, filtered light. Kalen lagged at the rear, his steps cautious, his gaze darting nervously to the shifting shadows that lingered at the edge of his vision. The air was cool and still, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and blooming flowers, a deceptive calm that set Orlin's nerves on edge. The path began to curve sharply, its twists and turns winding through dense thickets that rose like walls on either side. The trees here were taller and darker, their trunks wrapped in vines that glowed faintly with an emerald hue, their leaves rustling softly despite the stillness of the air. "This feels different," Adric murmured, his voice low but clear in the silence, "as if the forest is leading us somewhere." Orlin nodded, his fingers brushing against the seed in his pocket. "It's been guiding us this whole time," he said softly, "but now it feels deliberate." Kirana glanced back at them, her expression sharp. "Stay alert," she said firmly. "The forest doesn't give anything without a reason." The path widened suddenly, opening into a glade that seemed untouched by time. The air here was warmer, heavier, filled with the scent of sweet herbs and blooming flowers. At the center of the glade stood a grove of ancient trees, their branches intertwined to form a natural canopy that glowed faintly with a soft golden light. The ground beneath the trees was covered in a thick carpet of moss, its surface dappled with tiny, luminescent flowers that shimmered like stars scattered across a green sky. Orlin felt his breath catch as they stepped into the grove, the seed in his pocket growing warmer, its pulse quickening slightly. "This place," Adric said softly, his voice filled with awe, "it feels alive. More alive than any part of the forest we've seen." Cyrana approached the largest tree cautiously, the keeper's staff glowing brighter as she neared its massive trunk. The bark was smooth and dark, etched with runes that shimmered faintly with a silver light, their patterns shifting and flowing like water. She reached out hesitantly, her fingers brushing against the bark, and the air around them seemed to vibrate with a quiet, resonant hum. "This isn't just a grove," she said quietly. "It's a sanctuary." Orlin stepped closer, his gaze fixed on the runes that pulsed softly beneath Cyrana's touch. The seed in his pocket grew almost unsurably warm, its pulse aligning with the hum of the grove. "The forest brought us here for a reason," he said, his voice steady but tinged with unease. "But what does it want us to do?" The hum of the grove deepened suddenly, the golden light of the canopy flaring brightly before dimming again. Orlin felt the ground beneath his feet shift slightly, and a wave of warmth washed over him, followed by a quiet whisper that brushed against his thoughts like the rustle of leaves in the wind. It was faint, indistinct, but its presence was undeniable. "Did you hear that?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. Adric nodded, his staff glowing faintly as he stepped closer to the center of the grove. "It's the grove," he said thoughtfully. "It's trying to speak to us." Kalen shifted uneasily, his gaze darting toward the shadows that flickered at the edge of the glade. "I don't like this," he muttered, his voice barely audible. "What if it's a trap?" Sirana turned to him sharply, her expression hard. "If the forest wanted to harm us, it would have done so already," she said firmly. "This place, it's offering something. We just need to figure out what." Orlin felt a wave of uncertainty wash over him as the whisper grew louder, its tone melodic but alien, like a song sung in a language he couldn't understand. The seed in his pocket pulsed in time with the whisper, its warmth spreading through him like a quiet reassurance. "It's testing us," he said softly, his voice filled with quiet conviction. "The grove, it's watching, waiting to see if we're worthy." The light of the canopy shifted again, the golden glow deepening into a richer hue, and the hum of the grove grew louder, resonating through the air like the echo of a distant bell. Orlin felt his pulse quicken as the seed's warmth intensified, and he took a hesitant step forward, his gaze fixed on the massive tree at the grove's center. "Then we'll show it," he said quietly, his voice steady despite the unease that churned within him. "Whatever it wants us to prove, we'll prove it, together." The companions exchanged uncertain glances, but followed him into the heart of the grove, the light of the canopy brightening with each step, as though welcoming them into its embrace. The air within the grove grew heavier as the companions stepped closer to the massive central tree, the hum of the grove deepening into a resonant vibration that seemed to echo through their very bones. The golden light of the canopy above shifted and swirled, casting intricate patterns on the mossy ground that seemed to ripple like water beneath their feet. Orlin felt the pulse of the seed in his pocket grow stronger, its warmth spreading through him like a quiet reassurance. Sirana approached the tree cautiously, her grip on the keeper's swath tightening as its light flared briefly before dimming again. Adric followed close behind, his swath humming softly in response to the grove's magic, while Kalen lingered at the edge of the grove, his unease evident in the way his gaze darted nervously to the shifting shadows. "The grove is alive," Adric said softly, his voice filled with awe. "It's watching us, judging us." The runes on the central tree's bark began to shimmer more brightly, their patterns flowing and shifting like liquid silver. A faint whisper brushed against Orlin's thoughts, indistinct but melodic, its tone both inviting and unsettling. "It's speaking," he said, his voice trembling slightly. Sirana glanced back at him, her expression sharp but calm. "What is it saying?" she asked. Orlin hesitated, his hand brushing against the seed in his pocket as he tried to focus on the whisper. "I don't know," he said finally, his voice tinged with frustration. "It's like a song I can almost hear but can't understand." The hum of the grove deepened again, and the air around them seemed to shimmer as the golden light of the canopy flared brightly before dimming once more. Orlin felt the ground beneath his feet shift slightly, and the whisper grew louder, its tone more distinct but still incomprehensible. Kirana placed a hand on the tree's bark, the light of the keeper's staff intensifying as her touch met the runes. The grove responded immediately, the hum rising into a harmonious melody that filled the air with a sense of both urgency and calm. "It's asking us something," Sirana said, her voice steady but edged with uncertainty. "But I don't know what." Adric stepped closer, his staff glowing faintly as he knelt to examine the moss-covered ground. The tiny luminescent flowers scattered across the grove shimmered more brightly as he reached out to touch them, their glow pulsing faintly in time with the hum of the grove. "The forest's magic is ancient," he said thoughtfully. "It doesn't speak with the words. It speaks with meaning, with feeling. We have to listen with more than our ears." Orlin closed his eyes, the seed in his pocket pulsing steadily as he tried to focus on the melody that surrounded them. The warmth of the seed spread through him, and for a brief moment he felt as though he were part of the grove itself, connected to its magic and its will. The melody shifted suddenly, its tone growing softer and more introspective, and Orlin opened his eyes to find the grove transformed. The golden light of the canopy had deepened into a rich amber hue, casting long shadows that stretched across the ground like reaching hands. The runes on the tree's bark shimmered faintly, their light dimming as though waiting for a response. Orlin glanced at his companions, their expressions filled with uncertainty and quiet resolve. "The grove isn't just watching us," he said softly. "It's asking us to show it something, to prove something." Sirana turned to face him, her grip on the keeper's staff firm. "Then we prove it," she said firmly. "Whatever it wants, we show it we're worthy." Adric nodded, his expression thoughtful. "The forest's tests are never direct," he said. "It probes our fears, our doubts, our bonds. It wants to see what we're made of." Colin shifted uneasily, his gaze fixed on the runes that pulsed faintly on the tree's bark. "And what if it doesn't like what it sees?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. The air grew colder, and the hum of the grove deepened once more as the runes on the tree flared brightly, their light flooding the grove with an intensity that made Orlin shield his eyes. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and the melody of the grove rose into a crescendo that seemed to pierce through their very souls. Orlin felt the warmth of the seed grow almost unbearably intense, and the whisper that had lingered at the edges of his thoughts suddenly became clear. It wasn't a song or a question. It was a memory, vivid and alive, filling his mind with images of the forest's past. He saw the grove as it had once been, vibrant and thriving, its magic a beacon that had drawn creatures and people from far and wide. He saw the keepers standing where they now stood, their relics glowing brightly as they chanted in unison, their voices harmonizing with the hum of the grove, and he saw the shadows that had come for them, creeping and relentless, their dark tendrils reaching for the light of the grove. The memory faded, and Orlin opened his eyes to find the grove unchanged, its light steady and its hum quiet but present. "The grove remembers," he said softly, his voice trembling with the weight of what he had seen. "It remembers the keepers and the shadows. It's asking us to carry that memory forward, to protect what's left of its light." Sirana nodded, her expression resolute. "Then we honor its memory," she said firmly, "and we carry its light." The runes on the tree pulsed faintly in response, their light softening into a steady glow as the grove's hum quieted into a gentle whisper. The companions stood together in silence, their resolve unspoken but clear as they prepared to face whatever lay ahead. The grove seemed to hold its breath as the companions stood before the great central tree, its golden light casting long, shifting shadows across the mossy ground. The air was dense with magic, a palpable presence that wrapped around them like a cloak, and the hum of the grove had softened to a quiet, resonant tone that seemed to pulse in time with the seed in Orlin's pocket. Sirana raised the keeper's staff, its crystal glowing steadily as she stepped forward, her movements deliberate and calm. The runes on the tree's bark flared briefly, their silvery light rippling outward like waves on still water, and the ground beneath her feet seemed to tremble slightly as she placed a hand against the trunk. "It's waiting," she said quietly, her voice steady but edged with unease. "It's given us its memory, but it needs more. It needs us to act." Orlin felt the seed grow warmer in his pocket, its pulse quickening as though urging him forward. He stepped closer, the light of the tree reflecting in his eyes as he reached out hesitantly, his fingers brushing against the bark. The moment his hand made contact, the grove erupted in light, the golden canopy above flaring brightly as the hum deepened into a resonant melody that filled the air. The runes on the tree's bark shimmered and shifted, their patterns flowing like liquid silver, and the ground beneath their feet seemed to ripple with energy. Orlin felt the warmth of the seed surge through him, its pulse aligning perfectly with the melody, and a wave of emotion washed over him, grief, hope, determination, all blending into a single, powerful force. He closed his eyes, the seed's light seeping through his fingers as images filled his mind. The grove as it had been, a sanctuary of peace and magic, the keepers standing in its heart, their relics glowing brightly as they faced the encroaching shadows. And the moment the light had faltered, the shadows consuming everything in their path. When he opened his eyes, the grove had changed. The golden light of the canopy had dimmed slightly, and the runes on the tree's bark were now steady, their shifting patterns resolved into a single glowing symbol, a spiral that pulsed softly with a light that seemed both ancient and alive. Cyrana stepped back, her gaze fixed on the symbol, her expression hard but thoughtful. "The forest has chosen us," she said, her voice firm. "It's given us its light, its memory. Now it's up to us to protect it." Adric knelt beside the tree, his staff glowing faintly as he traced the spiral with his fingers. "The seed isn't just a relic," he said quietly. "It's a promise, a piece of what the forest once was, and what it could be again." The hum of the grove softened further, fading into a quiet whisper that seemed to drift through the air like the rustle of leaves. Orlin felt the seed grow cooler in his hand, its pulse steady and calm, and he slipped it back into his pocket, its presence a reassuring weight against his chest. The companions exchanged glances, their unspoken resolve reflected in their eyes, and turned toward the edge of the grove. The path ahead was clear now, the glowing stones marking the way forward with a steady, guiding light. "The forest hasn't finished testing us," Cyrana said, her voice calm but firm. "This was only the beginning. The shadows are still out there, waiting, and they won't stop until they've taken everything." Kalen shifted uneasily, his gaze darting to the shadows that lingered at the edge of the grove. "Then we'd better not give them the chance," he muttered, his voice tinged with determination. Adric stood, his staff humming softly in his grip as he stepped toward the path. "The forest believes in us," he said, his voice thoughtful. "It's given us its trust. Now we have to earn it." Orlin nodded, his hand brushing against the seed in his pocket as he turned to follow. The golden light of the grove dimmed further as they stepped onto the path, the air growing cooler and the hum fading into silence. As the forest closed in around them once more, the companions moved with quiet determination, their steps steady and deliberate. The glowing stones marked their way, their light a faint but steady guide through the shifting wilderness, and the warmth of the seed was a constant reminder of the burden they carried. Orlan felt the weight of the forest's trust heavy on his shoulders, but he also felt a quiet strength, a resolve to see the journey through, no matter the cost. The shadows were waiting, their presence a constant threat at the edge of their vision, but the light of the grove had not faltered, and neither would they. Together they pressed forward into the unknown, the forest's secrets unfolding with every step.